G'day everyone, Alex here from Trademate Sports. Today I'm going to be answering the age-old question of what is the best staking strategy to use when sports betting. There are many effective ways to stake in sports betting, and there are some absolute shocking ways to do so also. You could have an unbelievable edge in the sports betting market or in a certain sport, but if you don't stake appropriately, it could erode that edge or maybe even make you a negative EV better. In this video, I'm going to firstly share some of the most common staking strategies out there, which one I think is the best for sports betting, and which one you should definitely run away from. But before I get into the video, please make sure you subscribe to our channel and click the bell so you get a notification every time we post a video like this.
It is a scam when you don't allow everyone to operate on fair terms.
We are the Robin Hoods of sports betting. We take something back from the rich bookies and enable our customers to beat them instead.
The first staking strategy I'm going to take you through today is the Kelly criterion, which is a mathematical formula that calculates the optimal bet size based on the perceived edge. So basically, the Kelly criterion looks at a bet that you want to place, and it looks at how big that edge is that you think you have, and also the odds. So let's just say that you have a big edge and small odds. That's going to be a really big bet. Whereas if you have a big edge and bigger odds, it's not going to be as big. So it's all about adjusting for the size in odds and the size in edge. If the edge is really small and it's huge odds, it's probably going to be quite a small bet. Another example would be if it's a small edge and small odds, the bet's going to be bigger, but it's not going to be as huge as if there was a huge edge. Overall, it is the best way to stake on sports betting mathematically, but it can be very hard to implement, especially if you're trying to do things as quickly as possible. The other pro to it is that you'll never run out of money. You'll never go broke because you're always betting a percentage of your bankroll. So even if somehow you go from $1,000 all the way down to $10, you're always betting a percentage of that new bankroll. So you'll never go broke. So when you run your edge and the odds through a Kelly criterion calculator and also the size of your bankroll, it'll spit out a stake for you to place on a sports bet. Now that stake is a percentage of your bankroll. What makes the Kelly criterion a little bit complicated is that it's never a good idea to stake with 100% of the Kelly criterion formula. We at Trademate Sports advise that you stake with 25 to 30% of the Kelly criterion. If you did 100% of the Kelly criterion, you would be taking a lot of risk on a lot of your bets. And if we're talking about, even if we're talking about huge edges, if you're staking or betting at odds of 20, 30, even 10, 5, you don't want to be putting huge amounts on these events. You'd rather be, taking 25 to 30% of the Kelly criterion formula, and that way you're not it's just gonna increase or decrease your chances of losing significant amounts of money at a time just through mathematical variance. Another thing to take into consideration when using Kelly is that you have to have a very good estimation of your edge. If you are not 100% sure of how good your edge is, then the Kelly criterion will tell you to place certain amounts of money on certain edges. So if your edge is not as big as it seems as it actually is, then you're going to be staking, you're going to be overstaking a lot of your selections. You need to be vastly experienced in the sports betting industry to be using Kelly appropriately, because if you don't know the exact numbers around whatever edge you have, then it could turn into a bit of disaster. You could also understake too. So not only could you overstake, but you could understake. If you have a huge edge and you think it's not that big, then yeah, you could also understake. Also, sports betting at times can be a fast-paced environment, especially if you're doing something like steam chasing. It's pretty hard to get a Kelly criterion calculator out and calculate the perfect stake for you to place, because by the time you figure that out, the bet could be gone. Markets move fast. So in that sense, you need to maybe get so used to the Kelly criterion and seeing, using calculators that, have the Kelly criterion, that you get to a point where you can almost guess what the stake would be. So you can limit the amount of time wasted and opportunities missed. For a software like Trademate Sports, the Kelly criterion is the perfect staking strategy to use. And throughout all of our data, we've been able to prove that the Kelly criterion is the most effective way to stake using our system. But it works really well with Trademate because we can send out a bet with the edge and calculate the Kelly on the spot, just like that. So it doesn't take any manual work at all. It's all there for you to see as soon as the trade comes up. So that's a really good example of where the Kelly criterion is a really good way to stake in sports betting. But if you're having to do it all manually yourself and use a calculator, that's when things start to slow down and you will miss opportunities. The second staking strategy I'm going to talk about today is flat betting or level staking, which is where the bettor places the same amount of money on each bet regardless of the perceived value or odds. So put simply, no matter what the bet is, no matter how big the edge is, no matter how big the odds are, you are placing the exact same stake every single time. A really simple, can be effective way to go about your sports betting. The issue is that you're placing the exact same stake every single time. So you are going to be, you're succumbing a lot of the time, or some of the time, you'll be succumbing to a lot of variance. So for example, you could have a lot of positive variance if, let's just say, a lot of your higher odds bets are winning and your lower odds bets aren't, because the higher odds ones are winning, most likely you're going to be profitable. And you could also be the inverse. Let's just say that 75% of your bets are on odds ranges of 4 to 5 and 25% of your bets are on odds ranges 2 and below. If the 2 and below ones are winning and the 4 and above are losing, most likely, and it's that 25 to 75% split, you're going to be losing initially. And so over time, depending on how big your edge is, you will eventually start to win, but you will most likely succumb to some kind of variance, just like really any staking strategy, but more so in this one. If you're having results where the lower odds ranges are winning and the higher odds aren't. And then the other thing to consider is that you're also not staking based on your edge. Let's just say you've got 2 bets at 2.0, one is a 10% edge and one is a 2% edge. You should be betting more on the 10% edge at the exact same odds range, but you're not. You're betting the exact same flat stake on each, which doesn't really make sense mathematically. So that's another reason why you might want to steer clear of level staking, because you're not taking into account, as I said before, the odds, but you're also not taking into account the edge that you have, or the perceived edge that you have on a particular bet. But as I said before, this is a very simple system, and in the long term, if you can't be a plus EV bettor with a level staking strategy or a flat staking strategy, you won't be able to become profitable with any other staking. Maybe in the short term, but in the long term, you won't be able to become profitable with any other staking strategy either. The third staking strategy I'm going to take you guys through today is the martingale system. The martingale system works like this. After a loss, the bettor doubles down on their next stake to recoup the losses. After a win, the bettor returns to the original stake. So let's just say I lose $10 on a bet for Arsenal to win against Manchester City. Arsenal loses, I've lost $10. Now next time on my next bet, let's just say all I do is bet on Arsenal, they're going to now play Bournemouth at the weekend. Now I need to recoup my losses on that. So I'm going to place whatever stake is going to get me to the point of, if Arsenal win, I'm going to make exactly $10. So it takes me back to my starting point. And basically it just goes on and on from there. So let's just say you start with losing $10, then you lose another $20, then you lose another $50. Slowly, over time, you lose, and the theory is that eventually you're going to get a win that's enough to recoup all those losses and get you back to a $0 starting point. Out of all the staking strategies I'll go through today, this is definitely the one you should never implement into your sports betting. Because yes, maybe the mathematical chances of you going on a really, really long losing streak with your betting are minimal, but it is possible. And depending on how much money you have, depending on how much your first bet you place is, you could get into a really dangerous situation where you're basically chasing your losses and you never catch up. everyone has a limited amount of money, especially, you know, regular people. If you're a billionaire, then maybe this strategy is it's probably fine to use this one if you're a billionaire and you start with $10. I'm sure there's probably like a 0.0001% chance that you're not eventually going to be able to recoup your money. But for regular people with regular jobs and a regular bankroll, this is 100% not a good staking strategy to use. And one day, whether that's the first day you try this or the 10,000th day you try this, it will most likely all go wrong and you will go on a long losing streak and lose a significant amount of money. There are no pros to the martingale system at all. All I'll say is, if you ever think about doing the martingale system, don't do it. The fourth staking method I'm going to talk about today is a confidence-based staking system, which is where your bet size varies depending on how confident you are about the outcome. More confidence means a larger stake, and less confidence means a smaller stake. So this is a very, you would say, variable staking system where you're just solely based on confidence. So that can be good if you're able to put your confidence levels into a system that is consistent, but most of the time it's going to be quite difficult to do that based on, I guess, maybe even how you're feeling at the time, whether you're going on a long stretch of losses or wins. You could also, you could be overconfident from a large run of wins, and you could be not so confident after a long stretch of losers. And that's just always going to affect your staking system. One of the key things with staking is you want to be consistent no matter what. And with a confidence-based system, it's going to be really difficult to stake consistently. And once again, like I mentioned with some of the other systems, like the Kelly criterion, if you don't have a good estimate of your edge, then you're going to be staking wrong. So if you're a bit too overconfident in how big your edge is, or not so confident, you're going to be staking wrong. And that's going to lead to some less than optimal performance when it comes to your staking and betting. The last staking system I'm going to talk about today is bet to win X, which is where your bet size is solely dependent on how much you want to win. So let's just say every time you place a bet, you want to win $1,000 or bet to win $1,000. Whatever the odds are, let's just say they're 2, that means you would be betting $1,000. If the odds are 1.5, then you're betting $2,000. You're always betting to win $1,000. So the higher the odds, the lower your stake will be. The lower the odds, the higher your stake will be. Similarly to flat staking and level staking, this is a very simple and reasonably effective way to go about your sports betting, because it's really easy to calculate straight away and it's consistent. You're always betting based on the odds. What this system doesn't really account for is your edge. So you could be betting on, let's just say, a 5% edge at 2.0 in odds, and then you could also have a 15% edge on 2.1 in odds. So a small change in odds, but in terms of stake, you're going to be staking more on the 2.01 with the smaller edge compared to 2.1, which has a much bigger edge. So mathematically, it doesn't make as much sense, but that is the problem with this system overall. The other issue with the staking system is you're going to be having huge bets on lower odds. So there's nothing too wrong with that, especially if the edge is decent. But if you start doing that and if you lose one of those bets compared to, let's just say, betting on 10 in odds compared to betting on 1.1 in odds, you could see some real extreme variance situations where, let's just say, you win the bet at 10 in odds, which is a lot rarer than winning 1.1, of course. But let's just say you have a scenario where you're winning lots of higher odds bets. The exact same amount of money is being won every single time. Let's just say you're betting to win $10. You're winning $10, $10, $10. But then you get a case where you're betting on odds range of 1.1 or 1.2, 1.3, lower odds ranges, and you lose those bets to win $10. Your bets on those lower odds ranges are going to be way bigger than your bets on the higher odds ranges, which could create some huge variant outcomes in your sports betting if those lower odds ones are losing compared to the bigger odds ones. So now that I've gone through 5 staking methods you can use with sports betting, which one do I recommend? Well, to start off with, I would say keep it simple, work on your sports betting, don't think too much about staking, and just keep it simple. Go with the flat betting, level staking philosophy, bet the exact same amount on every single bet, just to get going. And over time, I think then you can convert to something like Kelly Criterion. As I said before, Kelly Criterion is the mathematically best way to stake in sports betting, but it's very complicated and you need to have a really good understanding of what you're betting on, how big your edge is, etc, etc. So keep it simple to start with. Yes, flat staking is not mathematically the best way to go about things, but as I also said, if you can't win level staking or flat staking, you're not going to win anyway in the long term. So start off with flat betting would be my, if you're doing your own things, if you're doing your own handicapping, if you're, coming up with your own prices on some kind of sport or league, then I would say flat staking is probably the best place to start. And once you've got a better understanding after 6 to 18 months, let's just say, of how sharp you are on certain sports, markets, leagues, all this kind of stuff, then you can start to think about adding in a little bit of Kelly here and there once you have a good estimation of what your edge is. Another important thing to note is to always stake what you're comfortable with too. So don't go following the Kelly formula, let's just say, if it feels wrong to you, if it's not sitting right with you and you don't feel comfortable with betting that amount of money on a particular event. I would like to just reiterate once again that we do not condone using full Kelly when doing sports betting. At Trademate Sports, we've found over the years that the best percentage or the best fraction of Kelly to use is 20 to 30%. Once you go over 30% of Kelly Criterion, it can get very high risk in terms of the variance that you will experience. So just wanted to reiterate that again, that if you are going to use the Kelly Criterion, that to use 20 to 30%. You could even go lower than that if you want to be a lot lower risk. And that concludes my video on the best staking strategy to use when sports betting. If you want to see how the Kelly Criterion works in practice, start a free week trial of Trademate Sports, and that'll give you a really good idea of the kind of staking numbers that it'll spit out dependent on your bankroll. And over time, you'll really start to learn of how big your stake should be dependent on the odds and the edge. Also, if you like the video, please give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. Click the bell too, so you get a notification every time we post a video like this. See you guys next time.